Hello, everyone. I'm Dani Palacio, and I'm grateful you're here. Today is Spark Question of the Week, and it is, what is the Akashic Record? Some of you may have heard about the Akashic Record or the Akash. Either way, it is many things. And you can find so many resources on it. You can Google it. There are several different books on what the Akashic Records are, how to access these records, why you would want to access these records. And I honestly don't know where my perspective falls in all of that information. But the Akashic Records for me are a vibrational light language that records all of your incarnations. So beyond human lives, we can incarnate in many different ways. I have had readings where people have been a rock, have been a river, have been an animal, and have been star brothers and sisters. So what I mean by that is what we would call aliens, I call star brothers and sisters because those star nations are cosmic in nature. They have energies, and the star systems are used to name those particular star brothers and sisters. So you may have heard of the Palladian star system. Well, Palladians are a race of beings, at least in my world. You may or may not agree or believe in that. But my experiences have taught me that obviously there is more life than just on planet Earth. And I have had experiences where I don't doubt it anymore. So back to the Akash. So it's a record that's going to record all of your incarnations because the fundamental principle of energy is that it is eternal. It does not get destroyed. It does not disappear. It simply changes, transforms. It can expand. It can contract. And so in that, your soul is energy, and your soul has a history. And the Akashic Records are where the history of your soul are kept. Now, some may say, well, how in the world can all souls forever? This Akashic Record must be huge. Well, it is, obviously, but the truth of the matter is this is kind of how I view it. And I view it this way because this is how I entered the Akashic Records years ago, 20 years ago, when I was in meditation or when I've done plant medicine or deep in my spiritual explorations. The Akashic Records for me feel like a grand library with beautiful pillars and lots of gold and very royal, regal in energy. And I see it like a long hallway. And I always wondered, where am I? Why am I here? What is this? And eventually I learned it was the Akashic Records. And I view it that every soul has a book. And in that book contains all of your incarnations and everything you would need to know, want to know about who you are eternally. What is your soul, your energy? I personally think this may be true for others. Each soul has a frequency signature. And so there are ways to access that frequency signature for people, for yourself. And then in that is where you find your book, or in my analogy, in my perspective, you find the book, you open up the book, and you go to where you need to go to find the information, to answer the question, or to give insight as to what your soul has already experienced. And that's the simplest way to explain the Akashic Records. I'm going to go one layer deeper, and then I'm going to give you some examples about how I use and access the Akashic Records for clients. As with everything, I think you are fairly all familiar with the concept of angels, energy beings, beautiful beings. God created them. There's all kinds of archangels and different layers and levels of angels, which are amazing. And similarly, when the Akashic Records were originally created, they're energies that hold them to be true, that protect them in their purity, and also work with the incarnated being, you or me, to help them access and to learn from. So I have learned that they are masters, teachers, and loved ones. And masters just means that these energies have never incarnated. They are pure life force energy, and their single purpose is to work with the Akashic Records and specifically with the various quote unquote books within it. Teachers, pretty self explanatory, really. They're energy beings that may or may not have incarnated, but they're really there to help the energy that's incarnated to learn the lessons, to be able to scan the record and find the places where there's opportunity to heal, opportunity to resolve, opportunity to embody, meaning bringing that wisdom, that teaching, that knowledge from the Akash down into current incarnation. And that's their job. And they, like I said, may or may not have incarnated, but they got a big job because honestly, when souls incarnate, it's for a reason, right? And last but not least is loved ones. And some may instantly think that loved ones means your ancestral loved ones, your grandma, your great grandma. That's possible. Absolutely. But it goes beyond that. And this took me a while to really understand. The more Akashic record readings I would do for people, the more I would learn. And now my understanding and belief is that loved ones could be ancestral, right? Could be your lineage, but could also be a soul that's not ready to incarnate, wants to be of service, and signs up to be your loved one so that you feel loved, so that you feel the sweetness, the beauty of life, and really are there to comfort and to, I always say they like to soften and round out the wisdom of the Akash because sometimes the messaging, the information can be rather startling. It comes through very boldly for me. And so a loved one might come in and be like, and also share, and it's soft and it's loving and it's compassionate, which helps the person that I'm reading for, I believe, digest it a little bit more and actually embody that information. So that's a little bit deeper. And now I'm going to talk about how I work with the Akashic Records in sessions with clients. I used to do dedicated Akashic record reading, and people would book a session for an hour. And we would talk about questions, concerns, areas of life that are confusing or challenging, particularly a person or an experience. Oftentimes, most people ask, what's my purpose? And I would do my very best to read their Akash and talk to their masters, teachers, and loved ones, as well as their collective spirit team, right? So we all have that as well. And it was wonderful, beautiful. I believe healing and comforting for the individual having a session. And now I will do an Akashic record reading specific session for that. But now it's part of every session I do, basically. I, of course, ask the person permission because I have a very strong boundary around consent when it comes to your energy. Without consent, it's a violation of your sacred soul. And I would never do that. I've had that done by other people and it is traumatizing. And it took a bit for me to heal around that. But so I have a very strong boundary of integrity around asking for consent to read their full soul. And I often ask throughout all time, spaces, and dimensions because we're multifaceted, multi-level beings. So your energy can go anywhere and has gone a lot of places, way more than you probably would think. So it's part of the session. And so when I find stuck energy, darker, denser, gooey energy in someone, on someone, I always ask, is it because of this incarnation, this life? And if it's no, then I say, okay, what incarnation? And then I access the Akash and I talk to the masters, teachers, and loved ones. And over the years, I've developed spiritual gifts. So I used to be able to just see things, but that scared me. And so I shut that down pretty young in life. And then I started to hear things and I realized that I wasn't crazy and that this was a gift and this was a new way for me to support myself and others. And I feel things. So when I'm in session with someone, if my body starts to feel things, I know that it's the client, not mine. So I will gather information and do what is asked of me to remove, clear, help embody this energy that is being present. And now I do all three. It's okay if I see things. A little bit about me is I actually had to negotiate how and when spirits could show up visually for me, because I don't like walking into a home, into a new place, or even in session seeing a bunch of stuff. If I have to, because it's necessary, the answer is always yes. So, and I'm good with it now. I'm okay. I have had enough years to integrate what it feels like and what happens. Not that there aren't surprises every once in a while, but I guess I would say I'm in alignment with the gifts that I've been given, and I feel blessed. So the Akashic Records, just as a summary, are an frequency light language of your soul's history. And remember, souls are energy and energy is eternal. And it contains wisdom, experiences, knowledge. It contains things that are incomplete, that you've negotiated or taken a contract with, that you said you would do something. And when I read someone's Akash, I read their Akash. So if it involves another person, another place, I get to see that and I get to experience that and I get to bring that forward. But I do not, in session, even if they ask about a particular person, I don't go to their Akash ever. I always stay in the single person that I'm working with, their energy, their frequency, light language for their soul. And it's enough, because whoever's there is going to be known anyway through the soul's experience. I don't have to go to someone else's Akashic record to find out about them, because we store things differently, right? Like, I joke a little. So I have an older sister and an older brother, and when we were in our early adulthood, in our 20s, let's say, we would talk about a particular holiday, and each one of us would have a different perspective of that particular holiday. And I feel like that is true, even talking about stuff that has happened in the past in a different incarnation, because the person I'm having a session with has interpreted, experienced other souls and energies the way that they did. It may or may not be what someone else has interpreted and experienced. So it's good to keep in mind that the individual that I'm supporting in a session, they have all the answers. And I trust that. And I'm grateful that I get to help bring those answers to them. So let's see. I mentioned that a lot of people ask, what is my purpose? The core purpose for all of us is to know ourselves. So why are you here? To know yourself. Everything else around you, there's a spiritual belief that says everything else around you is for you to know who you are, and nothing truly exists. You are the only one that exists, and everything else around you is a reflection, a mirror, an opportunity. And it's a fascinating perspective to have, because in our world, in 2025, we are looking for answers outside of ourselves. We are looking for someone else to tell us what is true, what is joy, what is love, how to fill in the blank with all kinds of different answers for that. How do I find my beloved soulmate? How do I find a job that's going to pay me more money? How am I going to make money in this world? I get a lot of those questions, like, well, what kind of job should I go for? And all of that is interesting. And of course, it's interesting because everybody ponders that question. Like, why am I here? What am I doing? Am I on track? Am I on path? And the answers always come back, no matter how many times I've asked them for myself and others. It always comes back to your soul incarnated to expand, to learn new lessons. And you were placed within a family, within a familial structure with the DNA of those people. And then experiences happened, and ultimately, you are meant to know who you are. And the only way you can do that is to look inside, to look at yourself. Why are you feeling what you're feeling? Why are you experiencing what you're experiencing? And trust the answers that are internal, because everything else is just trying to get your attention so that you can get to the truth within you. And I share that because, is there a purpose for you specifically? Yes. Beyond knowing yourself, loving yourself, accepting yourself, being the best person you can possibly be, maybe. I know several souls that have come in, and they don't incarnate very often, but they come in at change points with the earth, with the energies, because their unique signature adds to the collective on planet Earth. So you could be an emissary. You could be someone that has come to help with the current situations and energies. And if you weren't on planet, your frequency would be not here. It would be in the collective. It would be still in the universe, let's say. But when you embody in physical form, you have a stronger presence. And I think that's to be honored in a lot of ways. I always talk about desire with clients, because what is it that you truly desire? And can you own what you truly desire? You know, when I was a little girl, I loved school and I loved my teachers. They were a saving grace for me. They were the safe space, and I attached to them pretty strongly. And I wanted to be a teacher my whole growing up life. And even when I went to college and I studied business and marketing, my guidance counselor would always say, have you ever thought about, a master's in teaching degree? And I'm like, no, I want to go to business. I want to be in business. And what's funny is that the teacher energy is actually a soul resonance. It's something that if I'm not teaching, if I'm not sharing, if I'm not holding space for another, then I am off track. And I've learned how to be a mentor and how to be a coach. And now I'm actively devoted. There's no other job in my life other than doing energy work for people that are desiring it. And all of us hold unique frequencies. And so sessions can be with myself, and then you would go to someone else, will be very different. And each one of us that works with the Akash receives information differently. And my commitment is to share everything I receive, because it's all for you anyway. So no matter what I see, what I hear, what I feel, I also share exactly as they're telling me, word for word, which can be very awkward because I sometimes don't use those words, or I personally wouldn't want to say that to someone, but their collective self, the masters, teachers, and loved ones of their Akash, are saying, you need to say that, just like I said. And I was like, so sometimes I even preface it and I say, hey, I need to share something with you exactly the way they're telling me. And I just say it. And in those moments, I am always in awe that the person is like, whoa, I did need to hear that. Like, it's so powerful. So I never want to rob anyone of their truth, the energy that is coming through to them through me. So, okay. So Akashic Records are fascinating. Like I said, there are lots of schools of thought around Akashic Records. There are lots of ways to access them. I encourage you to be inquisitive. And if you're drawn to doing Akashic Record reading, please go and find a school, a book, an experience, even probably online, where you can create a practice that allows you to authentically, consistently get to the records. And if you're interested in a session with me, it can be on the phone. Otherwise, if you live near Newburgh, Oregon, or you're coming into Oregon for something, we can see each other in person. I wish you all the best. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please share this. It's the best way to help me, really. And I need your help. I need to expand. I need to reach new people. I want to. And so if your friends, family members, coworkers, even if you just repost it on your social feed, I would be eternally grateful. So thank you again. Have a beautiful day and a beautiful week. And I will see you next Monday.